Alright, so let's do the Crucible. Yeah, let's do the Crucible. Some control. Let's make this happen, Captain. So I'd like to talk to my subscribers on YouTube tonight a little bit about why personally I choose socialism over capitalism. I'd like to talk to you about this while I kind of play the Crucible on this recording. I'm not going to edit this terribly. I'm probably just going to shape it into the right frame rate, and then that's it. So I want to talk to you a bit about why I objectively reject capitalism. Why do I reject capitalism? One, let's observe a fact. The corporate standard is that the corporate and geo-corporate political enterprise is involved specifically and inherently with the American Embassy, the FBI, the Pentagon, the Oval Office, the White House, our president's office. Do you know what's funny to me is that the same people who end up usually it's a Republican on this matter, because in the course of from 1991, the Persian Gulf War, George Bush Sr., Republican and centrist. Thank God he was actually a centrist. He had some moral objectives that actually valued the people. That was the last good Republican, I think, was George Bush Sr. George Bush Jr. just wanted a fucking war. There's a whole movie called The Kingdom of Heaven, where one of the lords of the king of Jerusalem wanted a war against the king's wishes. And even went out to seek out the Châtillon for that purpose entirely. Specifically because, we control this. Just because you control something, capitalism and capitalist conservatives, does not mean that you have the complete entirety of its fragment list. It's kind of like playing Destiny 2. When you first open up the game, you get introduced to your light abilities, and when you eventually progress to your super and how you learn to use it, or even attain that class ability, you have to undergo a test, right? You have to undergo that scrutiny to be able to even confer the people who are in America in charge of geo and political and corporate politics. See, in America, the people are in charge. We, the people, are in charge of everything political, corporate, geopolitics, all of it. The people are the most in charge. And whenever I hear a Republican argue against a liberal or a socialist or a Democrat, I always hear the same talking points, because the same talking points they use are so redundant that they repeat them to the point where no one knows that they've repeated them since the fucking 1966. And unlike many, I've read the books that are what they call Satanism, because if I didn't know any better, to confront capitalism, you need to completely comprehend Satanism. First rule. Oh, we're doing the Iron Banner? Fuck. All right, what am I using now? Oh boy. All right, we're gonna try it. We're gonna try it with low impact. But anyway, why? People will straight up use their conservatism to say, these people need to do what we want. We're in charge. No, that's not the case. You are a party in the active disposition of the charge of governing the people where the people cannot. This does not mean that you are in charge by any stretch of the definition. It simply means that you're put in place to govern where we cannot. It does not make you in charge of us, we the people.
Opponent claimed Zone B.
Conservatives need to comprehend that statistic because it's a fact, and whether they want to accept it or not is not my fucking problem. It's a them issue, and I don't have to put up with it. See, as long as I've been alive in America as a millennial from 1991 to today, I have watched as every Republican outside of George Bush Sr. has lasted out to the point of removing the very things that make... Damn, they've been actively trying to remove the things that make the people, And here's how I can prove it. If you look at Google recently, they disbanded for a new API requiring you to identify yourself as if you're a Jew in a concentration camp at a fucking Auschwitz on Google. Just imagine being a fucking a guy on Google these days. You know, who would want to be on Google anymore? That's, you know, and on top of that, here's another expenditure. I have a phone. I won't tell you what kind of phone I have because I don't think you need to know at this point. See, my phone recently underwent a situation where I can no longer use it to make phone calls. I'd like to educate my populace of my subscriber base with the constant that it is illegal and federal crime, even in a felony case against the courts, to remove the means of outreach from even that of a prisoner of the United States. Do you know why? Because we have the First Amendment to the freedom of speech and it shall not be infringed. Yet the corporate and political elite would do daringly everything to socially integrate a situation where the social would have to surrender to silent objectification of isolation and subjugation, prejudice, bias, all kinds of shit. All because all the things that nobody wants to go through, right? And even on top of that, even as they may try to, the people are actively rebelling. You know, it wasn't too long that, you know, Google set up that API requirement only to watch as the kids would actively go out of their way. Oh, shit. All right, damn it. The kids would go actively out of their way to sign on to the internet in rebellion to the new API requirement using their parents' credit card. Dear Google, what are you gonna do when the parents done told you to fuck yourself? You know, corporate really needs to get a grip because the people themselves don't agree with this capitalist jargon. The people realize that in the course of history, capitalism was a success. We realize that it led us to many great discoveries and many inventions that would otherwise never be replaced in the history timeline of the chronology of America entirely. You know, but they don't want to fucking admit that. Got him. They don't want to accept that because, you know, just like they don't want to accept that the climate is changing due to their constant pollution. You know, they don't want to accept that. Oh, I bet you're a Green Party. You're fucking right. I agree with the planet being healthy. You got a problem with that, conservatives? Maybe you like your oil a little too damn much. Maybe we need to deprive you of that oil like we do the Cabal in Destiny 2. You know, maybe that's what is necessary to shut you capitalists down. Take away your fucking oil. The fact of the matter is that no matter what way you look at it, the most objective and factual-based truth is that logically, exponentially, going to socialism is the next best factual, logical choice. And the rational left would be, oh, think with logic. Logically speaking, your capitalism is a dying faction. It no longer exists in an economy where the 9-to-5 fucking functions as a regular statistic, whereas in the economy, the 9-to-5 is being neutralized by the same people who's seeking to put up a situation where somebody can be in a 9-to-5. You know, so let's not argue about, oh, who has a job, who has money. Let's argue about the corporate thinking they're in fucking charge of where the money goes. They're not in charge of that. The flow of money should be as free as the flow of information. You want to know why I think that? Because of cryptocurrency. Oh, it's fake. I'm sure that a lot of people think that digital cryptocurrency is fake. And the only reason they argue that it is inherently fake is because they themselves don't like the concept of being decentralized. The whole concept they live on is centralizing their nation with a natural system that they agree to, and everybody else kind of just has to follow in line like a military ordinance. The fact of the matter is that your greatest mistake, Republicans, was assuming that the people are military hardware. This is a phrase that was used in Halo 4 when Catherine Halsey, the caricature describing the mother of Master Chief, the main hero or protagonist of Halo, the trilogy, or for that matter, anything to do with Halo at that point. God, you're just, where are you, bro? You know, but like for a fact, the main protagonist, Master Chief, would never allow capitalists to constantly misuse the people to use us for subjugational practices. They never allow us to do, he would never allow us to do any of that because he himself believes in this thing called finishing the fight. And if the fight be political, I will finish the debate because that's how I understand to do so. I don't agree with the constant that capitalists think, oh, without money, the capitalist system will fall. Yes, the capitalist system will fall in replacement for a revolution of what will eventually be. Gotcha, dude. Ooh, you think so? Here, eat that. Night. Come on, drop my well. Eat. Gotcha, cowboy. Hell, sit down. The capitalist regime would eventually equivocally break down to a socialist economy because of the fact that it is, in fact, socialism is, in fact, the next viable and logical choice to capitalism in a situation where late-stage capitalism is in fact failing the people. The only people supporting capitalism are the people who are too greedy to see that the system is failing. And that, my sir, is why these people do not understand the difference in corporate versus social economics. Corporate economics, here, work a 9 to 5 for trickle-down economics, you'll get your pay, you'll earn your worth, but you won't. Whereas socialism, you will work your wage if you like, you may earn a wage and deserve that earning, or you can sit back and enjoy the process's fruits of the socialist economy, benefiting the people who otherwise in this system cannot do a damn thing. And capitalism has no real retort for, in fact, the loss of the people who do not have an ability to actively thrive in this current capitalist economy. That's a fact. That's status. That's statistics. That's a lot of things. But you can Google each and every one of these and find out your own answers. And I encourage every one of my followers to do some deep dive into this capitalism versus socialism kind of mentality. It's not a matter of, oh, socialism is communism. No, it's not. That's a lie. That's propaganda. And ain't no one in my fucking in any form of political education, not one would tell you that fucking truth. You wanna know why? Because the educated probably know better than the people bitching about it being communist. And I believe that fact. I'd trust my tutors to understand the truth more than I'd trust some political bigot with the attitude of, oh, well, you know, the people, they suck. They don't deserve money. Yeah, that's the reason that only 8 people in America have it all. That's the whole reason why psychopaths have been allowed to rain terror on the people via political aggregation, or aggregation for that matter, against the people in the form of political agitation towards the people as a means of control. I play enough Control on Destiny 2 to be able to sit here and tell you exactly what game in verbal construct is a game of compliant effect, a game of control. See, in a game of Control on Destiny 2, you have 3 flags, 3 objectives in which you need to secure and fortify to be able to secure a victory in the game. We lost last game because our team didn't focus. I was too focused also on being able to educate you on the topics I'm talking about actively in this given moment on this game stream. I'd like to make it clear to my people and my subscribers, my followers, wherever you are. Socialism is not a threat. It's not communism. People will tell you, oh, it leads to it. No, it doesn't. Communism is a completely separate identity of politics entirely. And real talk, there has never been a real communist regime. Not even Russia or Cuba are real, not even China is a real communist regime because they all hubristically defied their own communist initiative. And that right there is exactly why communism doesn't actually exist. It's a lie, a fear of the people, specifically based on the fear of outside, external political control.
Opponent claims zone B.
Got him on the headshot. Try to go for C. The fact of the matter is simple. people are actively voting for socialism more now on the left than ever. And it's because the political system of capitalism is actively hurting the people, and the politics of corporate capitalism do not agree with that constant because they don't think they are. They think they're serving the people. A reasonable understanding to say you think you're serving the people when you're not, only because of the fact that you think that you're benefiting society by being able to give them a product. See, giving them a product is one thing, but if I know anything about an arcade, when you earn enough tokens and the tokens aren't worth what, and the prize at the end of the fucking tournament ain't worth what the tokens are worth for the grind, that means the prize doesn't get fucking selected. The tokens get redeemed for finalists. You know, that's just how that works. And it's an alternative to the capitalist market, yet using a fundament of capitalism inside a socialist marketing tactic. The video game and arcade strategy simulation room. You know, this is just how this has been since like the 60s and 70s, when arcades of old were actually a place where everybody kind of went at the end of the day. It wasn't like the nerds all went there. There were jocks, there were your average, you know, pretty boys. You got your regular stoner guys who hung out in the... You got your regular stoner guys who hung out in there with them. You know, you got all your extra preps. The preps like to hang out at the arcade even when the nerds were there, because they liked to bully the nerds. And the only people who are now actively the same people in capitalist power against the people are actually the same people who once bullied the nerds, because they're the same people providing the games like, oh, I don't know, Destiny 2 to the nerds, expecting the nerds to just bow down and kiss their fucking toes, and I'm not going to. As a nerd and as a gamer, I freaking refuse. It's not my responsibility to suck your toes, sir. It is my responsibility to enjoy my game time with my personal enthusiasm of my hobbyist amusement. That is my responsibility. Here's a problem, though, is I can't very well do that and enjoy my responsibility if the world around me turns my responsibility into an ever-taxing, tedious, self-replicating, and self-repeating chore that otherwise just causes brain rot and doesn't really allow for intellectual stimuli, which leads a lot of people to not want to constantly be a part of capitalism as an entirety. You know, It seems to me that the same people who argue for capitalism are the same people who just want to line their pockets with a few dollar bills. At the end of the day, socialism encourages the spread of charity, generosity, social interactions, and the economy, the socio-economics therein. The problem I have with capitalism these days is capitalism does not in fact benefit the people. It deprives us of every single dollar we make. It tries to hold us as poor, and only so that they can think that they have all the money. They do, but they can think they have all the money, and then as a result of this, continually try to thwart anyone else who would say, no, you're doing it wrong, because they are in fact doing it wrong. They know the capitalists know they are doing it wrong, and they intentionally harm the people with all kinds of fuckery. Get out of here. Keep pushing. You know, like they intentionally harm people. They do. Oh no, we don't. Yes, you do. You literally start arguments on TikTok on panel discussions, thinking you're a podcaster, while trying to be controversial over the constant of race. The basic loop that everybody in America, if you're not poor, isn't stuck in. But if you are in a state of poverty, which is 90% of America, including what used to be the middle class, but that's not the case anymore. You know, the middle class is not succeeding. I'm a part of the middle class. I'm having a hard time struggling, and I'm still making it work. You know, but that doesn't mean that it's functioning. See, just because I can make a piece of gack work does not mean that the gack is worth the purchase. You know, it's kind of like saying, oh, well, you have you have too many interfering thoughts. No, I don't. I have a conscious set of directives that says the people deserve the power over the ordinance of the governing forces that be. If the governing forces crave power and authority, they are not governing forces that Americans should stand by at all. See, the people are in charge. We, the people, are in charge. Whether you'd like to admit it, corporate, you're at your wit's end, and I know it. Because the fact is, Google is actively pursuing everything to do with tearing down the people via identifying them like Jews at a concentration camp like Auschwitz, by using credit cards and identification cards as the next form of stamp. It's not different, it's just reworded. They want to say it's different because it's reworded, because in capitalist, if you rewrite text and it sounds good on paper, the paper means you make money. Whereas I do not agree with that. I don't agree with rewriting the text just to say, oh, it sounds better. No, I agree with rewriting the text so that it actually is better. For the people, not just me. It's not just about me. There are 400 million Americans in this country, and not one of us wants to put up with the constant state of affairs in politics today. Most of us are only voting in hopes for a change in an economy where the votes are overruled by money. That's not a fair way to treat the people, and anybody with money is abusing their money specifically for the sake of a fucking grab, for the sake of a money grab. That's really all they're doing, and I don't like it, and I'm not gonna fucking partake in it. I'm not gonna put up with it, and if it comes down to it, I will win against them in a debate, because if I have to talk about it on a video game, as a gamer, not a politician, that means that the gamers are desperately trying to tell you, politicians, you done goofed. The people are mad at you, and we all know that every single one of you been to Epstein's Isle, at the exception of secularly Barack Obama. You know why? Because he was a real president. He saved lives, bro. He pulled armies out of Iraq, where Iraq was certainly going to massacre our own people because they weren't going home. Capitalists just want to war. They just want money for simple destruction and call it glory, as if ruin would ever equate to glory. Anyway, that was an Iron Banner match. I took a couple of them. One loss, one win. If that's not balanced enough for you capitalists, maybe check your income, because your balance is looking a bit low today in the main economy of middle class, blue collar wages. So before you talk shit to me about being poor, maybe talk to your fucking mirror.